man, there's so many more opportunities now, for hygienists than there were, whether it's in group practice, becoming a hygiene director, or it's, our director of operations is a former hygienist.
So you're sitting here trying to build this culture, you're trying to build your patient journey, you're trying to get everybody rallied on the same page, and then you have this person coming in and coming out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're not bad. They might be the best. They might be the best hygienist in the world, but they're just not part of that system that you've built, and that creates issues.
The number one most important thing is there must be a very clear, strong clinical leader. So somebody that the clinical team respects and knows they believe in this person. They know that this person knows their stuff clinically. They're willing to follow the clinical leadership of this person and know that also this person is going to hold them accountable to this clinical standard, and that there's a really strong why that is a win for the patient first that this clinical standard was based on.
Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I am the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want. And today I got a special episode with Rachel Wall, who is the CEO and founder of Inspired Hygiene. And she shares not only her journey of how she got into being a dental consultant in the hygiene world, but she also shares what direction she thinks that hygiene is moving and what you can do to equip yourself to make sure that you're in the best position possible. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Make sure you stay tuned. All right, Rachel, so why don't you tell me how you actually got into the dental industry? Because I love your story. You kind of shared it with me before, and I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah. So I was a teenager, probably a year out of high school, going to community college, just kind of hanging out. My mom didn't like my plan of hanging out in community college forever. So she put the pressure on, it's time you're going to get a job, move out, pay rent, something like that, or figure out what you're going to do. And I happened to have a hygiene visit. And honestly, it was just as simple as that. My hygienist was amazing. And she talked to me about the profession. I thought, well, this is pretty great, because I wanted to be in healthcare, but with hygiene, you don't have to work nights. You don't typically have to work weekends, and the pay was pretty good. And there was a dental hygiene school about an hour from this small town where I was living at the time. And I really followed her footsteps. I went to the same school, and then I ended up coming back, and we had the same first job in the same practice.
Wow.
And then I've kind of lost track of her. So, but she had obviously big impact on my life. And that's how I got into hygiene, and worked in a very small, hometown practice, and then moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to finish my degree, and joined a really big progressive dental practice. That's where I really first encountered dental practice management, digital x-rays, cosmetic dentistry.
Like progressive from a business standpoint. They were like
Yes. Business standpoint, clinical standpoint, everything. And that was in 1994. I joined that practice, and they were one of the first in the area, even in a university town, to use digital x-rays. So that was pretty groundbreaking at that time. Yeah. And then that kind of inspired the consulting piece in me. And so a lot of steps between that and here, obviously, but that's kind of the short version of the story.
When did you figure out, you know what, I'm going to go into more the entrepreneur side of business? Because when you're a hygienist, your schedule's kind of set for you.
Right.
There's all those perks that you explained to me. But the one thing that I've learned from working with other hygienists is that you kind of reach this roof where it's like, this is it. Like, there's no more up. There's nowhere to go up. So you either love your job and you're going to stay at this level forever, or you either have to move out of that position, start managing, bigger teams, things like that, which is a completely different position, or move into the entrepreneur side, which you chose down that road. So how did that decision come about for you?
Yeah, man, there's so many more opportunities now, for hygienists than there were, whether it's in group practice, becoming a hygiene director, or it's, our director of operations is a former hygienist. So there's just so many more, or at least my mind, I have a view of so much more now than I did then, right? Because I had a very limited view of working in clinical practice. And then I went and worked at the dental school for 3 years as well at UNC. And then I approached the coach that worked with that practice that I was in, and worked as her, I would say, kind of her protege for a year or so. And
so
then
she was like a business coach?
She was a business coach. Yep. she was a business coach, and then she recommended me to be hired by a hygiene coaching company. And so I worked with that company for a couple of years. And she left. The woman who was the my mentor who hired me for that hygiene coaching company left. And there wasn't a lot of direction at that time in this group. And so I thought, you know what, I think I could do this on my own. And I'd had, some word of mouth referrals and things like that. And so that kind of kept growing. It was really just me and a virtual and then an in-person assistant at Inspired Hygiene for about the first 8 years.
Hmm.
And then I just gained this kind of, I call it the tipping point, right? That term about when things started happening with awareness, when there was awareness in the industry about improvement in the hygiene department. And then
Yep.
I also made some critical relationships with some centers of influence that then started referring
Mm.
clients, and it really grew from there. Yeah.
Sorry to disrupt the show, but I got something crazy to share with you. We are attempting to connect with all of our listeners. We have thousands of people that listen to this podcast, and we want to meet you in person. We have 4 events coming up, and I want to give you a discount code that you can use for the next week to save $300 off your ticket. The discount code is Gary Bird, and the link is going to be just down below. You can also go to smcnational.com/events. I hope to connect with you in person and help each other grow our businesses. Can't wait to see you soon. Got it. And do you if you were to compare the two, because and I'm asking this question for our audience because there's a lot of doctors who are like trying to grow their practices and be a CEO, but then there's other opportunities pulling at them. So
Yes.
are you glad with the decision that you made and the road that you went down from? This is more of the entrepreneur road than you could have probably went the manager or leader role in like a bigger group or something like that. Do you have any pros or cons breakdown or happy regrets, anything like that from that
Uh,
decision?
no, I'm very happy with my decision, and I think I grew into an entrepreneur as I had to. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
there are in all of our businesses, there are these reflection points, right, that we get to where we decide, okay, is this the track I'm going to keep going down, or am I going here? And
Hmm.
at every step, I still felt compelled to keep going on the entrepreneurial path.
You enjoyed the
Um,
pain.
s-
You enjoy the
yeah,
pain, right?
enjoy is maybe not the word I would use, but um, the pain was worth the reward, right?
Yeah.
Of whatever that was, if it was just the joy of growth or getting to just have a wide range of interaction with different people,
Hmm.
having some personal freedom around different things. All of that was worth the challenges that come with it in my mind. So yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
any regrets around that. And I think I'm able to work in my unique abilities most of the time. I mean, we all have to do things in our businesses that
Of course. Yeah.
we either have others support us or there's just stuff you have to do that's not your favorite. But most of the time I get to do like this, which I
Yeah.
really enjoy. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that. I love when people find what they're good at, but then also matches what they enjoy doing, and then kind of
Yeah.
piece it all together. Right? It's like, because it's not always simple. Sometimes it's very complex, and so it's awesome to
Yes.
see you travel down this road. Now, one thing that you shared with me is I would love to kind of pick your brain of where hygiene is currently at, because as you know, inflation's super high, so it's like hitting
Yeah.
all the patients' pocketbooks right now.
Mhm.
At the same time, the cost of goods are through the roof for
Yeah.
all these dental practices, and labor cost. And probably the biggest labor cost increase is hygienists. So everybody I talk
Mm.
to, doesn't matter who it is, it's like short on hygienists, short on hygienists,
Mhm.
short on
Mhm.
hygienists. And, we don't have room to bring in the hygiene patients. We need to bring them in through the emergency schedule or bring them in for a consultation for Invisalign or implants, because
Yeah.
we're scheduled so far out. Not
Yeah.
because they don't want to bring in those kind of patients. They love those kind of patients. Just as there's no room on the schedule.
Right.
How, where break down from your perspective, because you're in this way deeper than most people. Where's the dental hygiene world at right now? And then I want you to kind of take that and run with it, like where it's going and what it's going to develop into.
So I won't pretend that I know all the answers, right? Because there's a lot of different perspectives on this, from myself as a consultant, kind of seeing the industry, from my vantage point, to the hygienist that's, in the trenches working in a lot of different practices on a week by week basis, to those that are owning a practice in a, maybe a smaller town that they have a very stable, hygiene department. So there's so many different aspects of it. But I would say, from my perspective, what I'm seeing now is, a greater number of hygienists that are working as, I don't know who coined this term, but I love it. It's one of our hygiene influencers for sure. Guest hygienists, right? So they're working with way more guest hygienists in their practice than they've ever had. That number of hygienists that are working in that kind of gig
So is that a temp?
model.
Is that like a temp?
Yeah,
I
a
know.
temp,
Okay, okay,
right.
okay. I just want to make sure I understood it. Okay.
Yes.
I get where you're going.
So there are way more hygienists that are working in this temp or guest hygiene model than there have been in the past.
Mm,
And there are companies out there that are making it attractive for hygienists to work in that, with
yeah.
regards to their pay, and also even providing some benefits and taking care of the
And
tax
flexibility.
implications, the
And flexibility.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what I always say to our clients is like, look, it's time, like, we have to be flexible. If you want to have an employee and somebody who's stable and long term, you have to offer that, job, whether it's days or hours or whatever, some flexibility. And so there are more hygienists that are working in that role. I think that's going to continue to increase. And so how do we embrace that? How do we utilize that? I think that I know that there is a push, and I think that this um, will become something. I would say probably in the next 5 years. Dental legislation tends to move very, very slow, but license portability, so that it's not so difficult for hygienists to get licensed in different states and different regions, because that also makes it difficult for people to hire. Because if it's a huge pain to get licensed in a state, you're not going to be able to attract, other people, anyone other than who's right there. So I
Yeah.
see that. Um, and we're seeing that with our clients as well. I do feel like it's getting a little bit better with regards to hiring. I think that there are hygienists that are working in that guest hygienist role that probably will get tired of that and look for, I mean, it's a great way to kind of interview practices, right? And find something that fits for you.
Mm,
So I think there's going to
yeah.
be some that get tired of that, because it's not easy. I've done it. Um,
Why isn't it
and
easy? Help me understand. Like I'm sitting here thinking, like, why wouldn't I want the flexibility, the higher pay? I have my benefits. If I
yeah,
don't want to work next Friday, I just don't schedule myself next Friday.
right. So I think that's fantastic. And actually, I worked as a long-term temp hygienist at the dental school at UNC for 3 years. And I was in my, mid 20s, and I wanted to be able to travel and take some time off. And so I did that intentionally. And it was great. And I'm going to say I was a very responsible, because I was there long term. Like, I would plan out things way in advance. So I would block out a week or two so that patients didn't have to be moved. Um, so I think what's difficult about it, though, is if you're working in a lot of different practices every day, it's mentally challenging. You're walking in and you really don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what kind of protocols they have in place, how healthy their patients are or are not, what
Mhm.
instruments do they have if you're not bringing your own. And I would encourage, hygienists that are doing that a lot to invest in their own equipment. And then you have to get there early enough, because I've done that too, to set everything up. You just it's just a lot of there's a lot of background logistics that are going on in your mind besides patient care. And so I think that I know for a fact, because I've been in this position, and also some of my team members at Inspired Hygiene work in this role, is there are hygienists that will go into practices as a guest and completely up level their standard of care and reveal opportunities and reveal weaknesses in some of those protocols. And then
Yeah.
yes, which is actually a good thing. And then if the dentist, the business owner, is willing to be open to that, and if the hygienist presents it in a way that is, professional and encouraging. And then there's also hygienists that they're there and the practice wants them there just so they don't have to cancel patients. and they're doing the best they can. They come in, they don't know where anything is. We're opening all the drawers, trying to find things. And so what ends up happening at the end of the day is, I'm exhausted, and the patient's got, the prophy, but they didn't get the whole full experience.
Yeah.
They didn't, because we don't know
So
really what the
it's
philosophy
like
is of the
a
practice.
it's like a culture disconnect, right? Because
Yeah.
so you're sitting here trying to build this culture, you're trying to build your patient journey, you're trying to get everybody rallied on the same page, and then you have this person coming in and coming out, one foot in, one foot out. They're not bad. They might be the best.
Right.
They might be the best
Right.
hygienist in the world, but they're just not part of that system that you've built, and that creates issues.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I
It
follow.
does. It creates like continuity of care issues. And so maybe the last hygienist was there, did a complete perio evaluation, and this hygienist didn't have a chance to do that, or didn't get the chance to look at the treatment plan. And so the treatment's
Yeah.
kind of all over. And the dentist,
They don't
it's
know
hard.
the family.
for-
They don't know the mom,
Right.
and then yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it could go down a couple ways. What I'm seeing and what we're really encouraging our clients to do, and this has been always part of our coaching, is having practice standards of care rather than provider-centric standards of care.
Say that one more time. What was the first part?
So having like practice protocols and standards of care versus provider-specific protocols and standards of care. So provider
break
specific.
that down for me. Yeah, keep in mind I've never worked in a dental office before, but I want to understand this because I'm fascinated by this.
So provider specific is you have 4 hygienists in your practice, and every one of them, the way that they do the perio evaluation and the way that they tee up the diagnosis for the doctor, and then the way that they deliver the treatment is all a little bit different. Or you have 1 or 2 hygienists, and maybe they have protocols and they're pretty close. And then for whatever, one retires and the other one's, spouse is in the Army and they move away. And then all of a sudden they have this amazing perio program, and now it's gone.
It falls apart, even if you bring in great people, because there was nothing there to support it to make it long lasting. Yeah.
That's right. And the rest of the team really wasn't engaged in what those hygienists were doing. So instead, having the team has total input on all of this. This isn't like a dictatorial thing from the dentist, but develop these standards of care within the practice. So you have a practice standard of care. The whole team knows what it is and they've bought into it. And then we have to have a way to communicate that to all new hires, not just hygienists, all new hires, of what happens in our hygiene department, because it's important for an assistant to know that too. And especially an admin, if they're presenting treatment and presenting financials, so that now when someone comes in, whether they're a new hire, they're a guest hygienist, we present them like, hey, these are our standards of care. So every patient hygiene gets blood pressure. And, we do a complete perio assessment once a year and record that. And you know what? We have to be realistic. If someone comes in, they don't know where the blood pressure cuffs are, it's going to be a little tough for them to do a blood pressure on 8 out of 8 patients. But you know what? If they know the protocol after the first couple, maybe they'll do it on half of them rather than 0.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so how do you kind of see this? Well, first of all, how many people get that right out of all the offices that you worked with? Is it 90% get it right, 50%, or is it very few people actually get that right, where there's a standard of care that's everybody's on the same page with, instead of just an individual contributor who's just knocking it out of the park and it falls apart?
Right. I would say very few have that really clear and have the whole team behind it. I mean, that's one of the big things that we do, with our clients, is help them establish that.
Got it. Okay. And then how hard is that? So the tricky part about dentistry, because everybody kind of sees, as business people, right? We think, when I say famous businesses, you think Apple and Tesla and like all these, and we look at them and we're like, oh, that's so cool. But the thing we don't realize, number one, they're national or global even. And when they set things up, they do it at scale to go to the whole world. And so they can put in these systems that go globally, right? And which makes sense. But then you think about dental's so localized. It's like the exact opposite. You only get to serve this little small community, and you'll never serve any other community, right? Like you can't, like, unless you move, that's the only place that you're going to serve, and those patients right in that area. And so what happens a lot of times is we think about systems from this global standpoint, which is great. Get it up at the DSO level or at the group level, and that's awesome. But the real question is how do we actually get that to trickle down into the offices and happen over and over? And it's literally like re-implementing. It's the opposite of scale, right? It's like implement here and then go to the next office, implement. How does that work from your perspective as you try to roll these out for these groups? What's some of the things that they bump into that kind of slow them down?
I would say so when we're working with groups of multi-location dental, groups. And I will say too, just for reference, we're working with, 4 or 5 locations, right? Not
Perfect. Yeah. That's our
45
kind of our
locations.
audience. Yeah. Our audience is
Okay.
like 5 to 10 locations and they want to go to 25 to 50 over the
Yeah.
next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So the number one most important thing is there must be a very strong, clear, strong clinical leader. So somebody that the clinical team respects and knows they believe in this person. They know that this person knows their stuff clinically. They're willing to follow the clinical leadership of this person and know that also this person is going to hold them accountable to this clinical standard, and that there's a really strong why that is a win for the patient first, that this clinical standard was based on. All right, so let's say it's a perio protocol, that it's not just based on how many perio patients can we diagnose and get in on a single day because it's production based. It's more, okay, why is it important for our patients for us to diagnose this? What's the impact on them if we don't? And then how can we make this streamlined? Like, what software do we need? What team support do we need? And all of that. But the number one most important thing for a hygiene protocol to stay in place is there needs to be a strong clinical leader. And most of the time that is, in our experience, if the practices we're coaching are general practices, it has to be a general dentist. Or it could be a specialist that worked as a general dentist for a period of time. Or if it's a specialist owned, there is a designated general dentist that either has some ownership in the group or has clear authority and everybody knows who that person is.
So you need somebody to have skin in the
Yes.
game. You can't,
Yes.
I can't be like this. Hey, Rachel, can you come here and just fix this for me? I'm going to be busy over here doing this. Good luck. Like, it's not going to work, right?
No, and we've tried that and it doesn't work because the dentists that were working in the practice didn't have any skin in the game and they just want to do their restorative. And there was nobody saying to them, hey, you guys, like, we can't do restorative on patients that have active periodontal disease. Like, we've got to address this. And this is our standard of care. We need to protect our practice. We need to protect our patients. So that clinical leader really is the most critical thing in getting the clinical protocols to stay in place and be consistently implemented.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question for you. And where's the hygiene model moving towards? Like what in 10 years? I know it's a guess, right? Because you might be wrong, right? We might be wrong,
Yeah.
but if anybody's going to take the stab at it and get it right, it's going to be you, because you're seeing it. You're kind of seeing it develop over the next 10 years.
Yes.
What's your prediction of what's going to happen to the hygiene model as we know it today?
So here's what I'm seeing in real time is going in one of two directions. One is continued high PPO participation, lower hygiene profitability opportunities because of hygiene wages being high, and those practices will have a blend of the guest temp hygienists plus probably mostly part-time hygienists, and they have an opportunity to either increase volume of patients to get that hygiene profitability up, which will become more of a volume type thing, which has the potential to go into that loss leader role. Okay, that's one way that it might play out. And there will be both. You and I know there'll be a blend of both, right? So there'll be that, or there will be, which we're also seeing, is practices going out of network rapidly.
Yeah.
And that allows them to have competitive fees that allow them to maintain a profitable hygiene department. However, in order to do that, they have to really set themselves apart and make really deep relationships with their patients and provide some of these things that patients are looking for, like convenience, but also just like whole body health. And
Yeah.
so what those people are doing, and we're seeing our clients do this as well, is incorporating high level adjunctive treatments, talking whole body health, providing therapies that support whole body health, um, being really proactive with using technology with regards
Mm.
to diagnosis, the AI diagnostic,
AI. Yeah.
pursuing new services based on technology and new products, like really constantly innovating. There's that sector too. So either volume or like the high touch, high involvement patient or patient experience that's going to be leaving network dentistry.
Got it.
There's
Okay.
just going to
That's
be a
really,
more, I mean, there's a blend of that now, but it's going to be a bigger divide.
yep.
And we're seeing, where when I started Inspired Hygiene, 20% of our clients were participating in network and 80% were fee for service. And then 5 years ago, it was the exact opposite. And now we're seeing more of our clients dropping plans and going out of network.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, there's so many things, crazy things going on with the insurance. I have
Yeah.
like 4 million other questions for you around growth, but
Okay.
if I'm going to ask you live on this show. So I have another show that's all about just like, what are you doing to help practices grow? And it's like very tactical. Would you mind coming on that one?
Yeah.
And then I'll just totally pick your
I'd
brain
be
on
happy.
that. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then
I'd
number
be happy to
two,
do that. Thank you.
what is if someone's like, okay, that sounds all great, but I don't have time to figure all this out and I need help,
Yeah.
how would they connect with you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is to go to inspiredhygiene.com, and there's a little button that says, book a complimentary hygiene opportunity assessment. Do that, talk with our team, and they'll do a complimentary assessment on some top line things in your hygiene department and give you some advice on what you could do and how we might be able to help. Yeah, and we'd love to be able to do that.
Guys, if you haven't looked at your hygiene department, hygiene is huge and impacts everything. If you
Yeah,
are doing hygiene, like you got to have somebody helping you with this. And Rachel's one of the best. And I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing
thank you.
not only your journey but your expertise, because I think it's going to really help people. And I'm excited. I have all these questions in my brain, like, okay, how do you actually
Write them down.
apply this? How do you? Yeah. I already messaged my assistant. I said, okay, let's get her scheduled for this. Here's what we want to talk about. So I appreciate you being
Perfect.
willing to come on again, and thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming on and sharing your expertise.
my pleasure. Thank you so much, Gary.